Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi, everybody. Just waiting a minute for people to come. Oh, I see Heidi Stemple is here. Hi, Heidi. Does the chat work? Last time, I just want to make sure the chat works. Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Heidi's hi. Oh, I see some more friends. Hi, Stace. We're just waiting a few minutes for people to join. So excited for Saturday story time. We were just chatting about the difference in weather. Pearl is on the West Coast and I am clearly on the East Coast. What's the temperature there?
I operate on Celsius, so
So you can't say them.
can't really tell you, but I could walk outside like this, be a little chilly, but still be safe from the elements.
Kind of envious, not gonna lie. As I pull my wool scarf closer around.
Yeah, but looking very nice and cozy. Right now it is 18 degrees Celsius. I'm near the beach, so there's like a really nice breeze. Maybe
Heidi's
it's like high 60s.
Heidi, change your chat to everyone so Stacy can see. Oh, 64 degrees. Hi, Stace. 64 degrees Fahrenheit. Thank you, Heidi. It's very handy to have you on the chat today. Good morning, everyone. Just going to wait another minute or two before we get started. I'm very excited. Oh, 64.5 degrees Fahrenheit. She has clarified.
There's a 0.5 in there.
So excited. I love Saturday morning story time. I feel like I could start every day with a story.
Yeah.
You
that would be a nice way to start the day.
I'm gonna, you know what, while we're waiting, I'm just gonna throw the link to your book into the chats in case anybody wants to get a copy from Silver Unicorn, although of course we also encourage you to shop at your local independent bookstores. There we go. Okay, I think we should get started. Hello, good morning. Welcome to Silver Unicorn Bookstore's Saturday morning story time. I'm Casey Robinson. I am the events manager at the Silver Unicorn in Acton, Massachusetts. And today I'm so excited to have with us author illustrator Pearl AuYeung, who has written a gorgeous picture book called The Best Kind of Mooncake. Oh yeah, see, yours looks perfect. Mine is backwards.
This is one of my first copies, so.
It's so beautiful. And she is the author and the illustrator. So that's especially cool for us because we get to ask questions about the process. I'm super interested in how that works for you and getting to work with both the editor and the art director. So I wondered if you could tell us just a tiny bit about what the picture book is about. And then I just have a couple questions before I turn it over to you to share.
Yeah, so I'm not very good at summaries, and that's why I wrote a whole book. But basically, it's a story about a little girl who is just kind of living her everyday life, and then she runs into a stranger who needs help. And throughout the story, we learn that one single act of kindness can go very far and can have very big and lasting effects in a community.
That's a perfect summary. It's perfect.
What I'm moving so fast.
See, Pearl, you're so good. This is what I love about this picture book, and everybody will get to see this when you read to us, but is that the protagonist, the little girl in the story, has the most amazing personality. And by amazing, I mean slightly unique from what you would typically expect, especially a story about an act of kindness to be, but so authentic, so authentically kid. Did you have her, was she strongly in mind when you wrote the story? Like, did you have a sense of her, or did she develop as you kind of drafted and revised the story?
I was a kid with kind of a similar temperament with the girl in the story, honestly. I kind of grew into my niceness a little bit as I got older. Um, and the story's protagonist, the main characters in the story are based on my dad and his siblings and his parents. And since the main character is based on my aunt, growing up, she was always complaining about her childhood, as people of that generation in Hong Kong usually do, actually. And so for me, it just made sense for this character to be kind of unhappy with the way things are, or just generally a little bit grumpy, but still kind of, yeah, this is my life, I guess. We're just gonna go with it. But yeah. And I just like characters that are real like that. Personally, I just find them a lot more interesting and fun, and they're also funny to draw. So, yeah.
Did you start with the story in words or the illustrations for this book?
Started with the words. I actually started this book in a class at college. And every 2 weeks, we would have to push out a full manuscript along with a sample spread of what the illustrations might look like. So I
Oh,
started
wow.
with writing out the concept, then kind of writing a draft, and then coming up with the illustrations. They've changed a lot in terms of the aesthetic and the color as well. And I write about it a little bit on my website. So if you're interested, you can take a look there. But it was also a family story first, just kind of passed down orally. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to not make people wait any longer because I'm dying to hear you read this.
Right.
So Pearl is going to screen share. I'm going to sort of disappear for a little bit. And I'm very excited.
All right. Let me know if you guys can all see my screen
Good.
and we'll get started. So, The Best Kind of Mooncake by me. Right. This book is dedicated to my grandma, my aunt, my uncle, my dad, my mom, and my brother. Once upon a morning, in the alley of Tai Yuen Street, my family was setting up for the day. We opened the store, hung the racks, checked the change, and secured the roof. My mother promised my brothers and me a special mooncake to share at the end of the day as a treat. It was really the only thing keeping me there. It had a double-yolk center, the best kind. The air filled with beeping, bickering, and bartering. Rich ladies and high and mighty Englishmen would never dare walk here. The smell of car fuel, herbal tea, and steamed cakes always wafted through the thicket of old Tai Yuen. This is life every day, I thought. How boring. Nothing ever changed. Until thwump, a thin, sweaty man with the deepest eyes and the smallest ears fell to his knees in the middle of the street. He smelled like he had run 1,000 miles. I've run 1,000 miles, the man wailed as hawkers and shoppers surrounded him in curiosity. He said he had run through forests, swum through rivers, and slept in trees along the way. Oh, he even stowed away on a ship. He had never set foot outside his village before. He left everything behind but the clothes on his back. He crossed the border like crossing a finish line, but he didn't stop there, no sir. He ran through the mountain and seas of people. I leaned in closer to listen. Bah, we've all been there, brother, said one hawker. The crowd had begun to turn away, uninterested in hearing their own stories retold to them. My mother called me back for lunch, and as we pulled out our bowls and teacups, the man watched us with desperate eyes. Then we heard a gurgle. Gurgle, gurgle, gurgle. My mother reached into her bag and handed me a mooncake, the special mooncake she was saving for my brothers and me, with a double yolk center, the best kind. But then she said, "Dear, bring this for the hungry man over there." It couldn't have gone any slower. When I handed the mooncake to the small-eared man, he snatched it and devoured the whole 3 bowls of rice, double-yolk center, always shared okay mooncake in one gulp. Just like that, it was gone. The man closed his eyes and patted his stomach. He took a slow, deep breath and looked around at the boring old hustle and bustle. You're lucky, you know, kid. This is my first time being so far from my family, but it sure smells like home. I shrugged. But the people on Tai Yuen Street had been watching, and they slowly began approaching the man. One hawker from across our store handed him a new shirt, and another gave him a number to call for a job and a pat on the back. The man grinned ear to small ear and thanked us all profusely. As I watched him go, my mother passed me my bowl. Ma, why are they suddenly helping him now? I asked. He had given me a little extra food, but it wasn't mooncake. My mother looked at me pointedly and said, we have to take care of each other. Then, with a faraway look in her eyes, she watched the man turn the corner and walk out of our alley. Perhaps they remember that once upon a time, somebody helped them too. Tai Yuen Street resumed its dance of the bickering, beeping, and bartering of the afternoon rush. This was the life the man told me I was lucky to have. I took a slow, deep breath and looked around the familiar old hustle and bustle. Maybe the smell of car fuel, herbal tea, and sweet steamed cakes wasn't so bad. Decades later, a mooncake shop opened right behind our store. The owner had the deepest eyes, the smallest ears, and a round, full belly. He grinned and presented me a box of mooncakes. For you, he said. But I knew that mooncakes taste better when we share. And so we all enjoyed the double-yolk center, the best kind. The end. So this is my author's note. This book is based on a true story about my family, and the stranger in the story really did shove a whole mooncake in his mouth. Britain captured Hong Kong as a colony in 1842 in retaliation against China's Qing dynasty government for not participating enough in British trade. Later, during World War II, the Japanese Imperial Army occupied Hong Kong. After the Japanese surrendered the war and the Chinese Civil War had begun, Hong Kong was retaken by the British. Against the backdrop of war and occupation, Hong Kong received floods of immigrants, refugees, and settlers from the Chinese cities of Guangzhou and Shanghai, and also from Vietnam, Pakistan, India, Russia, and expats from Britain, leading to overcrowding, but also a mix of culture and people. Hong Kong was a colony until 1997, 1 year before I was born. My paternal grandparents met on Tai Yuen Street by bickering, beeping, and bartering, and then they raised my aunt, uncle, and dad there. Shopkeepers, such as my grandmother, are called hawkers and have stalls that move on wheels. And then they also fold up into like little metal carts. I've always loved hearing stories about the wonderfully lively Tai Yuen Street's past, and I hope you've enjoyed this story too. These are some photos of what the street looked like, my grandparents, my dad and his siblings, and my grandparents when they were a little bit younger. The end. Thank you so much.
So good. Everyone's clapping. You can only hear me, but I'm telling you, everybody is clapping. So good. I love that story.
Thank you.
If anybody has questions, feel free to throw them in the chat or the Q&A. I have many questions, so I'm just going to ask them until other people pipe in. But So I'm so interested in the process for you. So I know, so, and you, I should say, you went to RISD, yeah,
Mhm.
Rhode Island School of Design. Okay. So is that where the class was that you talked about starting the draft of this particular book?
Yeah, so that class is only available for seniors. And when I was applying for college, I saw that there was a class like this. I wasn't sure that I actually wanted to go into children's books, but I really wanted to just have an opportunity to try it out. So I had to wait 3 years before I could take that class.
Wow.
But it was so much fun. It was really great. My professors, Judy Sue, Goodwin Sturgis, and April Prince, are in the publishing industry. I think they work for Goodwin Publishing. And they were just really amazing mentors, basically, for this.
We have a question about the art, and I do want to talk about the art. So how did you do the art? What's the medium?
I did everything on an iPad. And my favorite thing about the iPad is that you can take it anywhere and work on it wherever you go. Because I was working on it my last year of college, I also had to, move across the country for my full-time job after school. And there was summer. So I essentially was able to bring my work everywhere I went. And the other amazing thing about working on the iPad is there's this app called Procreate, and it records your process as you go. So I really actually like sharing the time lapse of the drawing on social media, because that's just what I like to see from other artists as well. Yeah, I highly recommend.
And do you have, so I know that you said you had the story in words first for this particular story. What's did you sketch it out in a storyboard first? Did you have, did you do the character sketches first? Like how did it develop in terms of the art?
I kind of wrote a timeline of how I wanted the pacing to go. And then I kind of drew little thumbnail art of each page. So this page is 32 pages. So I kind of drew like a bunch of little squares, 32 little squares, and then kind of thought about the rhythm of the words and also the way that I wanted the images to flow across. So as you can see, there's like a repeating motif of the kind of smell of the market going throughout the book. So I thought that that was a way to connect everything together, and the way that we kind of go in and out of scenes, how close we are, how far we are. And I used to be a ballerina, so I set everything up kind of like a stage. So if you look at the background and the people, it almost feels like they're kind of just like first layer and then second layer behind and then third layer in the back that's like not really detailed. And I think that does come from my interest in the stage.
Yeah, this is a really interesting way, I think, to approach book development in general. So whether you're writing a picture book or a novel or you're illustrating a picture book, it's one of the things that I noticed and loved about the art in this is the way you use the layers. So this is a good example. The story that he's telling, that she's hearing, comes from him, but it also has its own dimension, right? The dimension of this is, I'm sure, in part to the art director's influence, perhaps. I'd love to hear about that too. Like the way that these spot illustrations come up and the different kind of type. It's just immersive.
Yeah, I think that definitely when I was a kid and looking at picture books, it was kind of hard to pay attention the entire time sometimes. So for me, if the entire book and the story, even the words, even if I couldn't read them, if they were dynamic, then I would just naturally be more interested and want to pay attention. And it was just kind of like a fun way to make sure that not only is the aesthetic of the words fun and playful, but the words themselves also have to match up to that. So I'm kind of just making sure that this is a good experience for readers. This started as a funny family story. And I think that there was actually some cultural gaps in where that humor was. I don't think my publishers knew where the humor was actually. And I don't know if most readers know either. But every time my family would retell the story in Cantonese, there would always be a lot of laughter afterwards. And I wanted to just make sure that we still had that kind of feeling in there, even if I couldn't really immerse all of my readers into the cultural background or the understanding of the little nuances, and just still be able to smile at the end of the book.
I think you nailed that. I mean, I think, and it happens again. I think multidimensional layering is like the theme for this book. I mean, your word choice, the ear to small ear line just kills me. I couldn't have gone any slower spread this one. I mean, what kid being forced to share something they want has not felt that? It's universal.
Yeah,
you know?
Sharing is so hard. You're asked to give something up that you were so incredibly looking forward to for someone you barely know and you don't know. Like, it's not about receiving something back, but it's just in the moment, it is such a big deal. It's a lot to ask for from a little kid, and even an adult, actually. So yeah, definitely a tough decision. That was actually one of the first spreads that I ever illustrated for this book. That was one of the sample spreads that I drew when I pitched it to the publishers. Yeah.
And so how did you end up pitching to Page Street? By the way, Page Street, if all of y'all listening to this, I'm just showing you the little look for this. They do excellent books. Excellent. I love their picture books. So how did you end up finding Page Street?
So for normal colleges, you have final season and like semi and midterms. At art school, we have final critiques. So we kind of have a big final project at the end of the semester that almost takes on the same kind of energy as the final exam, where you have to study for. And what we did was basically we made a complete dummy. And a dummy is like an example of what the book might look like. It's a little bit rough. It doesn't have to be perfectly written or illustrated, but it kind of shows what the rhythm and the pagination of the book looks like. And my professors invited a bunch of publishers and agents actually to our final crit, which is really amazing. And this was during COVID, so everything was over Zoom. So I pitched the book in a similar manner. I put it on a keynote. I put in page flipping transitions, and the illustrations look very different from what they do now. But I read it out, and Page Street sent one of their art directors there, and she really liked the book. I think she was also a RISD alum, actually. And so they contacted me for a contract, and it was just really, really great to work with them. Yeah.
That's amazing. I mean, I think this, perhaps a life lesson, which I always feel like picture books give us tons of life lessons, but, you're following your dream, you're doing what you love, even if you don't know, and maybe especially if you don't know where it's going to take you, right? You said you didn't know for sure that you might want to be a children's author illustrator, but you knew that you wanted to pursue art and storytelling, perhaps. But also you're collecting stories, like you're collecting stories from your past and your experience and your family's past and experience. And then look what happens when you do.
Exactly. Yeah. My mom always jokes that my dad has approached the age where all he's doing is recounting stories about his childhood. But it became a book. So pretty good deal. So tell more stories to your kids.
Tell more stories to your kids. Yes. Yeah. Collect them, tuck them away.
Yeah.
So you've said that the art looks very different now than it did when you started. So different how? Was it like a different palette, did the main character sketches change much?
Yeah, the color palette changed several times. I started off with almost like the color palette of the Chinese flag with very bright reds and yellows. But then I almost felt like it looked really cliche, and it felt a little bit, even though I am actually Chinese who grew up there, I don't know, it felt kind of like Orientalism just because I was so aware that this was for a Western audience. I was writing in English. I was pitching to an American audience.
Mhm.
And I didn't really want to fall into some of those cliches that are very easy for people in this country who are labeled as minorities to fall under.
Mhm.
So I changed up that color palette and I basically avoided all of the cadmium reds and yellows. Um, and then the main character has also changed in style several times. And if you go onto my website, there is a page for this entire book, and there are character sketches of what the girl used to look like. And I showed it to some kids, like my friends' siblings, who might have been in the age range. And there's this one version of the character where somebody was like, she looks annoying. So I didn't go with that style. And what I landed on was something that just felt the most comfortable for me to draw over and over again. It's 32 pages, so I have to be comfortable with drawing her all the time. And I just, another kind of little tidbit is the dad in the story is my grandfather, and I never met him because he passed like the year I was born. So I didn't give him much to say because I wasn't really sure like how he would say things. All I heard about him really was that he was a really jolly man. He really liked to laugh and smile, and he was really kind. And so most of his scenes are just kind of him smiling at his daughter because my aunt is a total daddy's girl. Yeah. And in China, they some funeral practices, they believe in burning things for the dead to receive in the afterlife. And so when my aunt got a copy of this, number one, she like first read each page to her dad, like a photo of her dad, and then she's going to like bring it to his funeral site, grave site, and give him the book. So I find it really touching, even though I don't necessarily believe in that that version of the afterlife. It's still just like it feels really great. Yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I think that's another thing, people don't always know or realize about creators, book creators, how much of you there is in this book.
Yeah.
How much of your heart, how much of your family, all the care that it takes that you took to put into your characters and the meaning behind that. I love hearing that. I feel like it's such a personal endeavor, but it translates because you can feel it, like the multi-sensory details that you include and the humor and the love. I mean, you talk about the smells kind of carries you graphically, carries you through the spreads and from page turn to page turn, but it kind of wraps you up, And so as a reader, you feel, I think how you felt putting that in.
Yeah, definitely. I mostly at the end of the day, I want to tell a story that is funny and heartfelt and makes people feel good, and also hopefully be able to pour in the kind of love that I receive from my family into something that they can touch. Yeah.
I think that's also one of the things I love most about picture books, because when they do that well, and yours absolutely does that well, that is the gift that you're when you're reading with a small child, in the context of safety and comfort and love, and you're able to convey that with the words and with the illustrations, then that's what they feel. Yeah, every time, it's amazing. It's amazing. I love this book. I love this book. Everyone needs to get a copy of this. We have copies at the Silver Unicorn. You're obviously we encourage you to buy them from your local indie bookstore as well. But we can also ship them to you, silverunicornbooks.com. Pearl, this is your debut, yes?
Yes, this
Your
is my first book ever.
So exciting. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Is there more in the works? I hope so.
Yes, I am illustrating a second book. I did not write it, but I am working on the illustrations already. I am currently also cleaning up a manuscript for the third book, and I have like the illustrations for it are actually on my website. And that one's another funny one. I just want to continue putting out funny stories that are also just like very beautiful.
Mm.
Yeah, I want to be entertaining, you know. Yeah. I'm also a toy designer in my professional life. So there will be toys on on toy store shelves very
That's so
soon.
fun. That's
Yeah.
so fun. As we'll be able to find out about those through your website. I did put the website in the chat, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah. The toys, I probably won't be able to share anything about them
Yeah.
until they're actually out.
Yeah.
But yeah, some exciting stuff in the works. Very busy, very, very, very busy.
I'm sure.
Yeah. I have a
Well,
cat now, so I have to work harder to give him a good life.
the cat needs the good life. Yes. You know all about the pet love, the pet love.
Mhm.
I was hoping Odin would make a little, I can't see.
Yeah, he's sleeping. He didn't really like the story, I guess. He's read it a lot, so.
Well, I am so appreciative of you spending time with us this morning, Pearl, especially since it's so early at where you are in California. This is a gem of a book, an absolute gem of a book. And it's so nice to hear a little bit more. Thank you, because my copy's backward. It's so nice to hear a little bit more about the creative process and about how it came to be. And I am so looking forward to more work from you. We will
Thank you
definitely.
so much.
Yeah, I'm gonna bookmark your website so I can keep tabs. Thank you to everybody who joined us today. So appreciative of you coming and supporting independent bookstores like the Silver Unicorn, and also supporting authors and illustrators. It's really important. So thank you so much, and have a
Thank you
great
all.
rest of your day.
Bye.
Bye.